Good afternoon. Today I want to talk about waking up, remembering the forgotten, getting up from your deep slumber. I'm trying to think hibernation, ending your hibernation, greeting the spring, greeting the beginning of your understanding of all that you have, or your reinvention, your re-understanding of all that you've always known, that which was hidden from us when we assume this new body. I've heard tell of individuals who are born awake, aware, connected to the infinite, Buddhists in fact, and they had come back for a specific mission, and that would unfold in its due time. But for most of us, we're born again to deal with our karma, to put our karma to rest, the consequences of our deeds, and to be careful about accumulating more karma by, and the solution is mindful action instead of just willy-nilly anything goes action, egoic action. We start to through awareness, take responsibilities of the consequences of our actions. And my immediate thought about all of this, contrary, which flies in the face of all that my struggle these last 50 to 60 years of actively attempting to answer life's questions. And it should be such a simple thing. This is the title of today's talk. It should be, sometimes it seems to me that it should be such a simple thing. And simplicity is not always simple, ironically, is it? And if it is supposed to be simple, then I have to ask the question, can it be this simple? And let me tell you a little story about a friend, a dear brother. It was very clear to me that his path was, it seemed on the surface, quite simple. We're going to talk about paths today because I want to help you to see which one to experiment, to see which one is most suitable. And I must put a caveat here that it's possible to mix these all four together and utilize bits and pieces. Different parts of my life, maybe I've used different yogas. Yoga in the sense of union. Uh-oh. And I'm going to go over those today. But I was telling you about a friend, and it came to me very clearly that his path was simply breathing. All he had to do to wake up is master breathing. And this was gifted to me like so many things. It was an insight gifted to me that I shared with this individual. And I always get a call, I'm doing better. I'm doing much better. Yeah, more power to you. Good on you. But all I have to do is simply look at his better half, and I get the real story. So I've shared with this individual for a couple of years about, I just sent him a message of just breathe. And it's such a simple thing, breathing. You don't teach a baby. And he said, well, how do I breathe? I said, watch a baby. Watch an infant on its back. And emulate, copy, become aware, focus on nothing but your breathing. So, my question for him, for myself too, can it be this easy? Okay, let's leave that aside for a minute as he struggles with his easy path. As far as I could see, he has the easiest path of anyone that I've come across. Just the one thing, breathing. So what are some of the things that lead us to maybe explore? I thought I want to start off by that. Basic things, but maybe it's worth going over. And most of today's talk I've been over it at great length, but I think it's on my mind. So I want to talk about it. The first motivating, certainly for me, not knowing who we are, or wondering who we are. I always knew that we were more than we seemed. I was born knowing that we're more than we seem. We're more than the ego lets us see or wants us to see. And then the next thing that might motivate this search is attachment. Clinging to things that are impermanent and having expectations. We're full of expectations. Do this, you do this, quid pro quo. We cling to people, places, things, and the constant of the universe makes this difficult because we have to understand that all things are impermanent. Okay. Then the third one is very interesting. Aversion. Trying to avoid things that are not real. Well, that's a tough one because everything that most of us accept is real. This room, myself talking to you, your partner, your mate, your job, your dog, your house, your car, all of them are impermanent. Your love for another human being is permanent. Your love for yourself, and by loving yourself, you start to understand the real nature of love, which is to love everything and everyone without expectations. And then we go to the number 4, identifying with the ego and creating separate realities. Her, him, they, we, it, she, he. We create separate realities. Each person that we meet, most of us. So we focus on differences and we're learning to look for similarities. Okay. There's only one reality and we're all it. And the king, queen of all these motivating factors to look for something else is the fear of death. And in this process, you're going to need to learn to become fearless. And it's this fear of death that is so universal, and probably the last fear that you have to deal with to shed. And that's why the metaphor of unquestioning leap of faith, to jump off the precipice, to jump into the abyss, which meant first surrender and acceptance that the ego has to die. And once you realize the universal oneness, and you understand that there's no separate realities, there's one reality, death just falls by the wayside. For me, it was discarded pretty simply because I had a glimpse, at least, of the oneness and the continuity, the energy that never is born and never dies. Okay, so what's some tools that we have to deal with these 5 things that I mentioned? We have some tools, and the greatest tool is yoga. Okay, and hatha yoga, sitting posture, that's one part. And I have to put a little, my wife said that she practices hatha yoga, and she said, I'm probably the least flexible person that she's ever met. And she's talking about physically, not mentally. She found this, her favorite teacher, Adrian, who's been teaching yoga for years, and some of you might know her or know of her. If you don't, I recommend her. But she had a special series for old guys like me, and old gals and old guys. And I tell you, even the bikinis, the simple stuff, was really a challenge. I basically couldn't do it. So, but I'm talking about yoga, which yoga means the union of body, mind, soul, and spirit. It's a path to rediscovering who we are and returning to a life of joy, bliss, and freedom. And so we talk about, because this yoga, this union through union of the body, see, body, mind, soul, and spirit, 4. It's basically the 4 elements of our existence. And to talk about, based on these 4 elements of existence, there's 4 different paths, and you can explore. Again, I mentioned that after I go through them, I'll repeat it, that you can either change during the course of your life, you can try one to see which one suits you. But we always start out with Bhakti Yoga. And Bhakti Yoga is the yoga of devotion, ultimately to the divine. But it can initially be a guru, your family, a friend, or anything that creates strong emotional ties. So we can see this as the emotive one. Body, mind, soul, and spirit. But this is, in today's world with so much chaos and confusion, it's said that bhakti is the easiest of the paths. And I'm reading, but it's well done, this article that I have. It can be practiced by anyone, regardless of mental or physical abilities, and doesn't involve extensive yogic practices, no asanas, no postures, okay? Bhakti is the path of love, which removes jealousy, hatred, lust. anger, egoism, pride, and arrogance. It replaces these feelings because if you take something away, there's a void, you got to fill it, right? It replaces these feelings with feelings of joy, divine ecstasy, bliss, peace, and wisdom. Pretty good trade if you think about it. It's the yoga of pure love, which connects your heart to the divine. This thread, this connection, is the essence of bhakti. It's been lying dormant in your heart since the beginning of creation, hidden by layers of ignorance and suffering. However, no matter what you do or where you go, this thread or divine connection can never be broken. This is what creates the deep yearning of your soul for joy and bliss. This connection, to be in love with someone or something, creates separation. Bhakti is to be loved, to be intoxicated with divine love. It is the unity of being in love with love itself. Put the emphasis where it belongs, on the divine self within each person we encounter. Now, a yogi, this was Bhakti Yoga, and the Bhakti Yogi is a follower of this particular, the first path that we're going to, and we're going to talk about some of the characteristics, and maybe this will help you to see which you might pursue. The Bhakti Yoga asks what it is that I long for at the deepest level of my being. Is pure in thoughts, words, actions. Looks for divinity in the ordinary. I love that. Looks for divinity in the ordinary. Honors and respects all life. Purifies the heart through devotion. Sings, dances, chants, and listens to the divine verses. Surrenders by being open to everything. Acts as a servant, a friend, or mother to the divine in everyone. People often say they don't have enough time for their spiritual practice because of family commitments. Bhakti is to make serving your family your practice. With bhakti, all attachments end except the all-absorbing Lord for God. This is the only attachment that frees rather than limits. Once the divine is reestablished in the temple of your heart, its love will serve you for eternity. Bhakti is the journey to finally rest in God. Okay, now if you're more of a doer, Karma Yoga, which means action, and Karma Yoga is performing action without attachment to the outcome. It's the path of selfless service we call seva. You cease to identify with the ego, and all action is seen as an offering to the divine. The heart is purified, so egoism, hatred, jealousy, selfishness, and similar negative qualities vanish, creating space for humility, pure love, sympathy, tolerance, and compassion. Karma Yoga is doing the right thing, the process of achieving perfection in action. It means following one's Dharma, and Dharma either means teaching, in this sense it means your true purpose and perception of whatever comes and accepting whatever comes, so you without expectation, here we go, of payment, thanks, or recognition. Now here's the karma yogi, the practitioner of karma yoga. Here's his characteristics. If it sounds like you, this might be your path. Lives with passion, but remains dispassionate about the income. Is effortless and graceful in all things. Has a loving, friendly nature. Is sympathetic, compassionate, and tolerant. Rejoices in the success and happiness of others. Feels neither above nor beneath anyone. Speaks and acts truthfully. It's the path of the warrior, it's called, because a yogi, this karma yogi, should maintain and this is a spiritual warrior, okay? Maintain a strong, healthy body. Bear insults and compliments, comforts and pain, equally. Have faith in him or herself, knowing the divine will always love him or her. Be acceptable to any situation and be able to mix with everyone. Have a calm mind. Be fearless. With karma yoga, all desires eventually merge into one, which is to serve and ultimately serve the divine. Now here's the path that I followed most of my life that appealed to me, that suited me. Jnana Yoga. Jnana Yoga is the path of knowledge, or more correctly, wisdom. It is the means to enlightenment through process of reasoning, particularly the process of discrimination between what is real and what is not real, what is true and untrue. Through study and self-inquiry, it is said to be that what is real and what is not real. Through study and self-inquiry, this is the technique, study and self-inquiry. It is said to be the most difficult path because it uses the mind and intellect to go beyond themselves to finally realize you are one with the divine. The Upanishad, the Hindu texts, call it the razor's edge, where ego is always trying to knock us off. It requires great strength of character, willpower, and intellect. Walking the razor's edge. When asked a question, the first step is to first ask yourself, who is asking the question? It's the study of ancient texts and teachings of the great masters, but more importantly, it is the study of your own self. Now this yoga, this practitioner of Jnana Yoga, here's what he or she does. Studies the spiritual texts of his or her traditions, reads the words of the great masters, asks the heart the following questions, and listens to answers without judgment or evaluation. Here's the questions. These are the questions that I just thought were intrinsic in each of us. But life has taught me that some people don't even entertain these questions. Who am I? What do I want? What is my purpose? This is the biggest one with me. Who I am, who am I was huge, but what's my purpose? I knew I had a purpose, discovering what am I grateful for? Now those are the questions, and here's the responses. Is mindful of the surrounding world, listens, reflects, contemplates, practice discernment and detachment, meditates and takes time each day to be silent. The Jnana Yoga stops worrying about what is being seen, but ask, why am I seeing it? Life begins to be seen as a dream. Now, number 4 It's commonly known as Rajya Yoga. I'm fiddling around, sorry. I have to bring this up some. Okay. Raja, it means the royal path, okay? Now, people such as not Adyashanti, but Sadhguru, he teaches the science of Kriya Yoga, and they're talking about this one, Raja Yoga, the royal path. Just as king maintains control over his kingdom, you must maintain control over your own kingdom. The vast territory of your mind. It's the path of meditation, mantras, and techniques. So this is the basic theme of Raja Yoga. But remember, techniques, we're talking about breathing, we're talking about Hatha Yoga, sitting. It's science. Sadhguru calls it the Kriya science. Because of this mastering of techniques. He teaches the techniques. If you're interested, I highly suggest and recommend him as a great teacher of this particular Raja or Kriya Yoga. The energy, mastering the energy. Chinese call it Qi, the life force. So control, meditation, mantras, techniques. The basic theme of Raja Yoga is that your perception of the divine self is obscured by the disturbances of the mind. If the body and mind can be still and pure, the self will instantaneously shine forth. So this is the discipline, this is the stilling, this is what I sought so sincerely and was never accomplished it because I was looking for something that was for a different type of individual, a different person that could control, that could tame, that could shut down the monkey mind with the intention of clarity. And I thought that meant to see things so clearly. But for me, clarity just meant clarity of purpose. It was all process to understand that. But if you're a person, then this is kind of the traditional approach to Zen as most people understand it. Quiet. So calm, quiet, and eventually control, to stop, to quiet in silence. No thinking at all involved. And of course, Jnana Yoga is the yoga of the thinker. So, there you go. The basic theme, perception of the divine, I'm repeating myself because I got lost, obscured by, this is a basic theme, obscured by the disturbances of the mind. If the body and mind can be made still and pure, the self will instantaneously shine forth. Raja Yoga, this is the path most favored by Westerners because it can be practiced by almost anyone requiring no belief or particular faith. Raja Yoga seems to believe that only you will find out for yourself through direct experience. And I'm going to try to move this up. How come I can't? Here it goes. Because I can't. Okay. Through a direct experience, okay, the Raja Yogi, the practices of this yogic path, maintains balance in sleep, diet, lifestyle, and work. Very disciplined. Rinzai Zen. I spent 33 years trying to discipline my rigorous discipline of sleep, diet, lifestyle, and work is in harmony with nature's rhythms, is pure and non-judgment, takes responsibility for his or her life, has control over his or her emotions, and remains free from worries, avoids distraction, and trains the mind through techniques of meditation. This is what Sadhguru is Kriya, is science of Kriya, trains the mind through techniques of meditation. So look at these things: discipline, control, maintains balance in sleep, diet, lifestyle, and work. It means spend an equal amount of time or energy devoted to those. So which one suits you? Which one is the best fit? You might see yourself, as I mentioned before, in several of these four paths, and that's a perfectly acceptable. There's maybe a time in your life that one's more appealing or more accessible or seems more relevant. Along the way, you can become aware of your spirit guides. In my experience, these guides come in pairs, and I've been able to identify both of mine. So those two will help you in your pursuit, help direct you. You learn to, and if you can't identify them, if they're not readily identifiable, just look for the shadows. Just look to see. Well, sometimes, if you do a special reading and somebody resonates, some historical figure resonates, I would suggest that you start examining that feeling. I've been able to work with my wife recently as she's looking to identify in a form that is familiar and probably one of their lifetimes of her two. So these are the two, they're your helpers. They're assigned to you, they're yours, even though one of mine, Damo, both of them are always available to as many people as need them. They're able to, the ultimate multitaskers, you might say. They're able to be here for you, for me, 100% for me, 100% mine, 100% yours. Look for them. They're there.